Hello and welcome into this edition of the Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Lav. Well, the PGA Championship didn't have enough storylines. How about this one? Rory McIlroy is now the winner coming in of his last two tournaments Sunday at Quail Hollow. Absolutely steamrolled world number 5, Xander Schauffele, on the back nine to shoot 65 with a double bogey on the last hole and win by 5 again with a double bogey on the last hole. Rory McIlroy in full flight at one of his personal playgrounds and now heads Rex to Valhalla, site of his last major championship victory back in 2014. What's your biggest takeaway from yet another victory for Rory at the Wells Fargo Championship, his 4th at that golf course?
I put it on X earlier tonight. I was just kind of looking at some driving stats earlier in the round, and I don't think there's anything more entertaining in golf right now to me than watching Rory when he's driving the golf ball like that. When he is just in full flight, as you said it, when he's hitting driver, not because he has to, because he wants to. And he knows that I can get away with this. Like nothing's going to hurt me. And this wasn't an easy golf course. I mean, this is Quail Hollow. This is a major championship caliber test. I mean, we all know how difficult this golf course was. And he was just, when you go through the stats, at one point, he was 10 yards longer on average than anyone else in the field, the number 2 in the field. I mean, it's astounding what he's able to do with that driver when he gets it moving out there. It was 188, 189 ball speed. Like it was just a phenomenal week. And this is Rory at his best. And then I got curious. So I went back to 2014. You brought up the good point. He actually had 1 back-to-back starts before he showed up in 2014. Now, granted, one of those back-to-back starts was the Open Championship just because of the timing. But you still have to, I'm not going to jump the shark here, because I think I know where you're going to go with this. I would say that Scottie Scheffler, assuming he's going to be in the field next week, is still going to be the favorite. But Rory moved much closer.
Oh, absolutely. He moved much closer. He's such a momentum player, isn't he, Rex? And so, like when Rory gets on these sort of rolls, it's easy to envision him carrying it over 4 days later on a golf course in which he does already have some success. Like you made up a great point that Quail Hollow was not playing easy this week. There was just 20 players who were under par. There was just 2 players. It's actually quite a pretty good duel until the last couple of holes between Rory McIlroy and Xander Schauffele. Those are the only 2 players who reached double digits under par, and yet Rory absolutely blew them away. 8 under par over an 8-hole stretch. The biggest takeaway for me was him wielding the driver once again as a weapon. 185, 187, 188, 190 ball speed.
189.
Just absolutely blowing the cover off the golf ball. You say that it's one of the most exciting phenomenons in golf, watching him when he's driving the golf ball like this. He's always driven it like this, but the mystery has always been, well, what's he going to do there? Is he gonna flub short irons into the right greenside bunker?
Oh,
sure.
Is he gonna
hit a wedge to 30 feet? This was not that performance. This was Rory very tidy until the last hole, in which it was, kind of got a flyer out of the right-hand rough. What did he drop? 2, I think he had 4 bogeys overall for the rest of the week. That's the kind of tidy golf that Rory has not been playing for much of 2024. If anything, I think that was the most encouraging sign for me and shows his major readiness. The fact that he only had 4 or 5 bogeys throughout the course of the 72-hole tournament, again, at a golf course that's a major championship venue that was playing as firm and fast as Quail Hollow was. That is very auspicious as we look ahead to Valhalla.
5 bogeys in the double at the last. And that was just, I wouldn't say that was untidy. I just think, when you walk into that hole with that much of a lead. I thought about this. Do you think you and I could close out a 7-stroke lead standing on the 18th tee box?
At Quail Hollow?
Yeah. It would be close.
I mean, a 500-yard par 4, a stream down the left, bunkers down the right. I mean, I would hit it so far right that I would have confidence that I could probably make a 10. I think I can make a 10. I could make a 10.
Well, because you're assuming whoever you've got a 7-stroke lead over is probably not going to birdie that hole. But yeah, I that's what I was processing over those last couple of things. Yeah, you're right. But I wouldn't. I'm going to push back a little bit. No, I don't think he always drives it like this. Like, sure, he can always.
He does.
He can always get
that's
that.
That's the beauty.
Yeah, but no, I don't think he ever had. I don't think he always has this particular brand of confidence. As a matter of fact, I don't know that he's had this brand of confidence as he won the Players Championship back in 2019, if I'm not mistaken. Just the way he was standing on tees, the way he was moving, everything that he did. You're right. Chipping in for eagle That certainly helps. Every time he had a birdie opportunity coming down the stretch, he converted. Tidy is the right way of saying it. All of those things factor into a win, and a dominant win like this. It's amazing to me that this particular golf course is the one where he seems to shine so much. To win here 4 times, and that you can carve out a lot of different things about Rory's career. That one to me is going to be one that you have a hard time, because again, really, really difficult golf course. This isn't as though this is Augusta National, where Lefty had so much success, where a guy like Bubba Watson had so much success, where their specific style of play always factored into why they were able to have success there. This is just a big, brawny, bruising test. And you just have to show up, and you have to hit the ball a really, really long way. And he talked about it. Rory talked about it earlier in the week about there's holes that he doesn't feel comfortable on, that because of how far he's driving it, that the windows get kind of small because of the dog legs and the way the rough and the woods pinch in. But yet he still stands on tees, and he plays as if he doesn't have any fear. I say that that's the most entertaining thing in golf at the moment.
I mean, it does, however, feel like this is a golf course that's particularly suited to his style of play. I mean, he's so long, and I think more importantly, he hits it so high. That combination, he can carry dog legs, he can fly bunkers that players like Xander either have to really take on and cut it narrowly, or are kind of playing left or right of them and playing for position oriented style of golf. Rory is literally just sailing them over by 10, 20, 30 yards. Like they're hardly there. It does obviously bring up the point that next year's PGA Championship venue is Quail Hollow Golf Club at this time. Very likely to be soft in Charlotte. I don't think there's supposed to be significant changes made to the golf course. If they just grew in the rough, if they pinched in some of the fairways, they would be, I think you could host a major championship there in short order, just with the style of play that's required there and the yardage on the scorecard. I mean, if Roy doesn't get done at Valhalla, he's got to certainly feel good about next year's PGA Championship site as well.
Well, and I remember having this conversation the last time the PGA Championship was at Quail Hollow, and he played decent, but not well enough. Obviously, JT got it done there. You seem to be a little low on energy. How's your weekend been? You all right?
Yeah, no, it's been a long Mother's Day weekend. I was not feeling my best this morning. Powered it through. I went to the beach, so yeah, I'm a little bit drained. And then you and I both have a 4 a.m. flight to look forward to on Monday morning as we set sail for Louisville, Kentucky. But yeah, we're powering through, which should be a 25 to 30 minute podcast. I would appreciate you not dragging it on any longer than it has to.
I will not. But I did want to just button this up on the back end, because on the other side of this conversation is Xander. And my immediate reaction as I'm watching sort of those last few holes is, wow, I'm not quite sure anybody could have beaten Rory today, just the way he was playing. Although Xander did start the day with the lead, and he made some really, you talk about Rory being tidy. Xander made some really untidy bogeys coming down the stretch. And it makes me wonder, this is a guy who hasn't won on the PGA Tour, I believe, in 4 years. It makes me wonder, as consistent as he is, and he's gone 2 years now without missing a cut. Like, he's third in the FedEx Cup. I mean, he's a very, very consistent top player. But for such a consistent top player, he doesn't seem to have that gear that we always expect out of top players. That, yeah, once they get anywhere close to the lead on a Sunday, they're going to close it out. You don't see that out of Xander.
I mean, this is his reputation that is now coming to fruition. An immensely talented player, unquestionably a top 5 player in the world. Loads of talent. Does absolutely everything well through the bag in every facet of the game, and yet to use an expression that the kids say, like, he doesn't quite seem like he's got that dog in him. You know, like Rory, when he gets a sniff of it, he can I think he can put his foot down, and he has a different gear than a lot of players. Xander is not quite as explosive. His ball striking is incredible. I mean, he was, if not keeping up with Rory, like he was at least in the same vicinity. Like, he's still pumping it 185 ball speed. Like, he absolutely hits the snot out of it. And yet it's not quite all there, particularly in final rounds. That has been what has dogged him over the course of his career, just the tidiness. And he made some untimely bogeys, as you mentioned, on 12, could get up and down from just off the green. On 13, sailed it long on the par 3. He had a great opportunity to match Rory for eagle on 10, and he wasn't able to do it. Like, most of Xander Schauffele's victories have been in come from behind fashion, where he's more comfortable chasing. He can put up low numbers. He has really struggled, and this was something that he'd kind of knocked off, or at least so we thought, with the Travelers and the Scottish Open in 2022, which is when he last won, where he'd won from the front runner position. We thought, okay, he's finally moved on from that. I think when we see now the Players Championship this year, he had a 4-shot lead through the halfway point of the Wells Fargo Championship now. Yes, he's still kind of in the midst of these swing changes with Chris Como and still learning to trust it, but this had to be a setback for him. Just seeing the gap and what can happen when a player's in full flight and one who's just slightly off.
Well, I mean, you say he was keeping up with Rory. I don't know about that. I mean, on the first hole,
hammering it. Xander's
on the
hammering
first
it.
hole, you know the difference. I'm looking at the stats right now, and I like had to do a double take on this, and this is what forced me to go fire up the shot link on my laptop because I had to be sure. Rory had 146 yards in for his approach on the first hole today. Xander had 206. And it was driver to driver. They both hit driver there. Now, granted, clearly Xander didn't hit his driver well, but that's a 60-yard difference, if I'm doing the math right. That's not even close. And it wasn't that exaggerated throughout the course of the day, but Rory was at a different level. Just to be clear about this. And we're going to sit here and have this conversation about Xander and I actually teased you on a radio show this weekend because they were asking me about Xander. And I go, well, my colleague Ryan Lavender is going to pick him at the PGA Championship because he picks him every single major championship, and he knows eventually if he just sits in one spot, it's going to happen. Like it just has to happen. And you and I both will have him high on our list because if he wins next week at Valhalla, I don't think either one of us will be going to be shocked because you're right. He has all the tools. He has everything, but it's still shocking to me when you have a player of that caliber. I liked you pull. That was a good pull. He doesn't seem to have that dog in him coming down the stretch. There was a time though when people said the same thing about Rory McIlroy, that he didn't have that dog in him, that maybe he was too nice of a guy, and maybe that has been the case at times.
I think you're confusing Rory McIlroy and Ricky Fowler.
No.
Rory's always had that dog in him. Go back and watch the highlights from the 2014 PGA Championship. Rory had that dog in him.
No, I'm talking about, well, I'm really
down the back
from 14 forward is really what I'm referring to, where in this drought, say the major championship drought years, where we've gone a decade now and he hasn't been able to get it done. And part of the narrative throughout time was, one, he couldn't get off to a fast start. And then when he did get off to a fast start, then he couldn't maintain it. And then I've heard, I mean, this has been part of the conversation that maybe he's just too nice of a guy, that he doesn't have that I'm going to step on your throat when the time comes. He had it today. And when he's at his best, I mean, you go back to Kiowa when he won the PGA, won by 8 strokes. You go back to when he won the U.S. Open.
Yeah, he's got like the pimp strut. Like there's no doubt about it. When Rory's feeling himself, like you can absolutely tell that he is feeling himself and he's playing some good golf. The reason why Rory's not won a major championship over the past decade, I don't think it's been for a lack of want or his ability to close. Obviously, the slow starts, if you're playing sort of armchair psychologist, leads you to believe he's probably putting a little bit too much pressure on himself when he gets to the opening bell and isn't quite ready to answer it. And then he's making up ground that way. What's been shocking, Rex, over the past decade is actually how few chances Rory has had to win a major over that span. You think back to the Masters, that one with Patrick Reed in 2018, like he played in the final group there. Obviously, the 54-hole co-lead at the Open Championship at St. Andrews just a couple years ago. Last year's U.S. Open, like the majority of his close calls in the majors since the 2014 PGA have come over the past couple years. That leads me to believe he's getting closer and closer. I think this run of confidence that he's had, starting at the Zurich Classic, where he partnered with a good friend, Shane Lowry, had carried him to victory there at the Zurich, and now the way he played, the manner in which he won again on Sunday with his best putting round in 2 years, plus the way that he's driving the golf ball. I think it's fair to wonder, if not now, when, because this seems like Rory McIlroy's got everything firing at just the right time.
Well, everything's firing at the right time. He's going back to a golf course where he won a major championship, so clearly he feels comfortable there. I think there's enough things in his universe now that have settled down for one way or the other. Not getting voted onto the policy board may have been a favor to him because he's not going to have to sit through those 8-hour marathon policy board meetings now. So I think all of those things combined probably should shed a very, very favorable light. It's really, really hard to do, though. I mean, there's a reason why it's been a decade. And you're being a little selective, too, when you're saying that he hasn't even particularly been close. And I know that sometimes
He hasn't.
This can get exaggerated, but, I mean, there's been 2018 tied for second. And again, that's all in context, but you don't know.
I'm talking last 9 holes
second.
opportunity to win the golf course.
Sorry, 2022 Masters second, 2023 US Open second. Like, he's had opportunities.
2022 Masters, that was when he shot the 64 in the final round. He lost by 4 or 5 shots to Scottie Scheffler. I'm talking on the back 9 with a chance to win the golf tournament. You can think back to LACC last year. You can think back to St. Andrews in 2022. What else comes to mind? The Patrick Reed Masters in 2018.
Yeah,
I'm talking last couple holes. That has been the most surprising thing for a player who has not left the top 20 in the world ranking over the past 15 years. How and played the elite level golf he's won, the number of tournaments he's won, the FedEx Cup titles he's won, the constant competitive arena that he puts himself in seemingly week in and week out, to not do it in the majors, I think is the most befuddling part. And I think we'll obviously get some answers here over the next couple of days.
And for all the reasons you have to be optimistic about him going into next week, the one thing that I think gave me the most optimism was listening to him talk last week. Just the idea about how much he was looking forward to playing that golf course, Quail Hollow. Most players won't tell you they're looking forward to playing that golf course, but he knows his particular brand of golf fits really, really well. Same thing for Valhalla. When he's playing his best golf, he's kind of like Tiger Woods was in his prime. He wanted to play the hardest test because he knew the wheat was separated from the chaff.
I do want to, I'm not sure about that one. We can circle back on that.
Wheat was separated from the chaff.
Yeah,
that's the right way. Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
not the shaft. Definitely not the shaft.
Got it.
You mentioned the policy board. Just to button up something that we last talked about on this podcast on Wednesday, where Rory McIlroy is once again at the forefront. Sometimes for all the wrong reasons. He was rejected by the PGA Tour Policy Board. There was some speculation that maybe there was a rift between his and Tiger's relationship, which he said, no, that's not the case. They simply have had a disagreement on what the future of golf will look like. But then, Rex, after we recorded our podcast, Rory was made a member of the transaction subcommittee. How's that for tour jargon? That will directly deal with the Saudi Public Investment Fund. That's obviously an update from what we last talked about on Wednesday. What's your take on that? What does it mean that Rory's not on the policy board, but he's instead as part of this subcommittee?
Well, to address the policy board vote, first and foremost, I don't think this was necessarily, and you're right, he addressed the possible rift between he and Tiger Woods. And he was, it seems to me, he was as honest as he can be, that he and Tiger clearly had different views about things, but he didn't feel like that was the problem. He didn't feel like that's what kept him from being elected back onto the policy board to take Webb Simpson's place. He felt like it was an optics problem, that when he stepped down in November, they kind of had to circumvent the normal process to put Jordan Spieth in his spot because he had a year left, and now they were going to have to do it again. And there was probably plenty of members. There were plenty of members that didn't like it. And so that was probably the bigger hang up here, that they knew that they were going to run up against more and more pushback, and they don't.
Tiger doesn't even have a term limit. But all of a sudden they're treating this with a fine-tooth comb, like looking over
and they
all
have
the bylaws.
To. No, they have to. And I think I heard you dismiss it before somewhere else last week. And the reason they have to do this is because professional golf, the PGA Tour, unlike pretty much every other professional sport, doesn't have a collective bargaining agreement, doesn't have a union. The way they get their representation is on the board through these player directors. Now there's 6 player directors, one being Tiger Woods. It's important that the membership have a say in that. That's why it's important. I read a lot of people on social media talking about, well, what does it matter? These are just rules. These are important rules when you look at how it applies to golf, because again, unlike every other sport, there aren't built-in protections with a collective bargaining agreement. Those players, the tour is not necessarily looking out for the player's best interest, because that's not the way it's designed and set up. So you have to have these players in place that can make these big decisions, and those players have to represent on some level the membership. That's why it's a big deal.
Rex, what would you say to the perception that now exists that Rory being put on this transaction subcommittee is basically a shot across the bow at Patrick Cantlay, saying, okay, you don't want Rory in the room. Now he actually is going to be in the room with the Saudis, helping to hammer out the details, not you.
Well, Roy still doesn't have a vote, and Roy was probably the first one to point that out. I don't have a vote to whatever's going to happen. It's because he's not on the policy board. To Patrick Cantlay, I think you're taking a stretch, and I think you're right. There's probably something there between Patrick Cantlay and Rory McIlroy about whatever their visions of what the tour should be, whether if that's with PIF or without PIF or whatever the case may be. I don't know that Tiger's not in that conversation as well. I don't know that Jordan Spieth is not in that conversation. I don't think the player directors for certain are all seeing eye to eye on what they think the future of golf should look like. Rory has a very distinct vision that he's vocalized publicly on numerous occasions about a global tour that brings everyone back under the same umbrella, that travels around the world, that you have 20 to 25 events with some sort of relegation and promotion. Like, he's made this pretty clear. I'm not sure that I've heard any of the other player directors, including Tiger Woods, comment on that one way or the other. So my guess is there's plenty of player directors and probably independent directors on the board that don't necessarily see it eye to eye with Rory. So I don't think it's fair to put this on Patrick. But again, I don't think it's the disagreement. I don't think it's the philosophical disagreements that caused this rift, that caused him not to be voted back on the board. I think this was just procedural.
We will at least start to learn what the other faction believes. Tiger Woods and Jordan Spieth are supposed to speak to the media on Tuesday at the PGA Championship. Again, probably not expecting Tiger Woods to divulge some of his closely held secrets and viewpoints with an active negotiation currently going on.
Wouldn't you want to know? Like, in your heart of hearts, like, I'd love to sit down and be like, how do you
Hey man,
see the
what do you
next 10,
think?
15 years? Yeah.
What do you think? This is Rory's idea. Why or why not?
Yeah.
That's simple.
And I know it's probably a difficult time to do that because you're right in the middle of the negotiations. To go back to your main question, I think it's a really good spot actually for Rory to land, because I do think there has to be someone in that room that has some sort of relationship beyond whatever Jay has created with Yasser Al-Rumayyan, the governor of the Public Investment Fund. And clearly Rory has a relationship with him, and he has more of a global vision than probably the other player directors.
Look at you. You're butchering that name just 11 short months ago, and now it's just rolling off the tip of the tongue. Very, very proud of you. We will do a full PGA Championship preview on Wednesday, Rex, live and on site. But I do want to mention now, with Rory's win, back-to-back wins, Scottie Scheffler, assuming he is going to tee it up, he's scheduled to have a press conference on Tuesday at the PGA Championship. I believe, per your note on NBCSports.com/golf, he has until 5 p.m. Eastern time Tuesday to commit to the golf tournament. So Scottie, 4 of 5, including 2 in a row, including the Masters. Rory, 2 in a row, the Zurich and the Wells Fargo Championship. How about Brooks Koepka, the defending champion of the PGA, just won in his most recent live start? Of those 3 players, because this is obviously a perfect storm, I think everyone's super jazzed for the PGA and see how this one goes. Which of those 3 players now do you have the most faith in to get it done?
I mean, it still has to be Scottie. I think we addressed this earlier in the pod. I mean, I'm not
What
going
if he's not sleeping? What if he's
not sleeping? Unwell? What if he's not practicing? What if he's sleeping on the couch and he wakes up with something wrong with his neck?
Those tar poops, those baby tar poops, takes some getting used to.
Yeah,
they really do.
Disgusting. Yeah, there's a lot of things that could, go wrong potentially in this scenario. Or the baby, as far as we know, hasn't arrived and doesn't arrive, and he shows up and he's been practicing and he's well rested. I have to go with that option, because what Scottie has done up to this point, you'd be such a prisoner of the moment for me to say any other name than Scottie Scheffler right now.
I mean, yes. However, this is a significant life event. This is a significant life event. And if you're the rest of the PGA Championship field, Scottie and his wife Meredith have opened just the slightest sliver of a possibility that he may not be at his tip-top form. I mean, we had not seen a player at his level of cruise control since Tiger Woods' prime. Yeah. And then you throw in the significant life event. I think there's more unknowns when it comes to Scottie Scheffler right now than obviously there were a month ago. And if you're Rory,
strokes to the field, strokes gain nap time, is that what you think?
strokes gain rest. But I'm saying if you're Rory, if you're Brooks, if you're Xander Schauffele, I mean, you have to be thinking, this is probably my best bet to win a major championship this year, just because there are unknowns. I still have the most faith in Scottie because of Scottie Scheffler, and he has shown nothing throughout 2024 that would lead you to believe otherwise. But I just love how these 3 storylines are coalescing at the exact same time. It was not long ago, Rex. We're talking Florida Swing on the PGA Tour 2 months ago. We're like, hey man, where's all the stars? This PGA Tour season stinks. Like there's nothing going on. No one's challenging. It's a bunch of no names. It's guys who are outside the top 100 to 1 odds. And now instead we have three of the best players of this generation, all in tip top form, peaking for a major championship. I love it. Can't wait to get up to Valhalla.
I had a hot take I wanted to run by you because after we did the pod the other day on Wednesday, I actually had a hot take and I didn't bring it up until after the pod. And so we ended up talking for 20 minutes. So probably the best part of the pod on Wednesday was after we actually turned after we turned the pod off. And I will touch on what we talked about then. But I don't feel as good now after reading the tweet that he and Brandel Chambly went back and forth, or that he and Brandel Chambly went back and forth about. And I'm talking about Anthony Kim. And my hot take was
we can't say that word on this podcast.
Anthony Kim or Brandel Chambly?
The word that AK used to describe Brandel.
Oh no, that's not. I'm not getting into it at all. Like I actually came up with this before that even got into. Like good. I'm staying well clear of that one. I think AK should have gotten exemption into the PGA Championship.
What?
Is that all you got? Are we gonna?
Why?
I mean, I go back to the Ryder Cup. I go back to he was such an important part of that team at Valhalla, and they give invitations for all sorts of other things. Last year, Paul Casey got one because he'd play well. He played well in the PGA Championship 2 years before that. So there's all manner of things. I think it would have been a good olive branch. That was my only point.
A good olive branch. This is the most tumultuous time in professional golf history, at least on the elite men's level. And there was so much hand-wringing of whether first Joaquin Niemann was going to get a special exemption into the tournament, and then the host of live players who got exemptions in the PGA Championship. But all of a sudden, you want to throw a freebie to AK?
I mean, there's plenty of freebies out there.
Because of a Ryder Cup performance 16 years ago?
I think
who is struggling to not finish last in live tournaments?
His play is not a great ally on this one.
You think the PGA Championship is hurting for promotion, that they need to have a little bit of a sideshow with AK, who, again, has not been competitive this year? Again,
not hurting. I think he could help.
If he turns around his game, sure, give him a sponsor exemption. If we're trying to be merit-based with major championships, again, at this critical point in time, where every invitation, every exemption is scrutinized, you just want to give one to AK because of a Ryder Cup performance 16 years ago?
I mean, we did 10 minutes of TV on it last week about giving sponsor exemptions to Adam Scott and Webb Simpson and to signature events.
That's a tour event.
Look, I'm just saying, no, the PGA Championship's not hurting for marketing on this front. But imagine how much more attention, how much more eyeballs, how much more focus they would get if AK was there. He's not deserving of it. That's kind of the whole point of sponsor exemptions. If you were deserving of it, you found a way to qualify for the event. So I'm not going to try to argue on that front. Yes, I do think it would be a very good olive branch. And I find the PGA of America
an olive branch to whom?
To the other side, to live golf and
they just extended invites to 16 live players.
Yeah, give another one. I'm fine with it. All right.
It's a third of the league. How many more guys do you want?
I floated that one. What we talked about on Wednesday after we turned the cameras off. And so I just want to touch on this real quick.
What a bad hot take. That was a terrible take.
No, I still like it. I'm going to bring it up to Seth Waugh when the CEO talks on Wednesday or Tuesday. The other one was, I'm sure everyone watched the Tom Brady roast on Sunday night live on Netflix, which I thought was really interesting that they're getting into live stuff. There were things I liked about it, things I didn't like about it. However, I was taken by, and you get these same emails from like betting websites and whoever about different prop bets. And my inbox was flooded on Monday morning with people saying that Tiger Woods would be the next celebrity roast. And I thought to myself, there's no way. I will not say definitively in anything in my life to the extreme that I will say there is no way Tiger Woods will ever do that.
When in a public setting has Tiger Woods ever like poked fun at himself? Never. Like he was just on with Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon's doing his shtick, and Tiger just sits there and like nods and laughs. Like he doesn't play along. He doesn't poke fun at himself. That roast will never ever happen because Tiger doesn't want it to happen, and probably Mark Steinberg does not want that to happen.
Well, and he was the part, and I had this conversation with a buddy of mine, pointing out that over the course of Tom Brady's career, he got divorced for under whatever those circumstances were. There was Deflategate and
Bad.
there was Spygate, and that's
Spoiler
it.
alert, they were bad circumstances.
Yeah. They seem like, based on I encourage everyone to go watch the roast because it was a topic that came up on numerous occasions. However, those are the three things that you would look at and be like, oh, the Golden Boy got those three things wrong over a 2+ decade career of being the greatest player of all time or the greatest quarterback of all time. That's it. That's the end of the list. Now, do that same list for Tiger Woods. I'll wait. I'll hang up, actually. I'm going to mute because this is going to take you a long time.
So I don't think Tiger would do it, obviously. But here's how about this for a twist?
Phil?
A player who I think would do well in that roast setting. I know he's kind of a pariah at the moment, persona non grata. Phil Mickelson would be an amazing roast recipient. I could see him wanting to do that. I could see players lining up to deliver some one-liners at Phil's expense. I just don't think that one's going to happen either. I do think actually, I'll take that back. I think that's more likely to happen than Tiger's.
Yeah, and didn't show up in the prop bets. And normally Vegas, I find the guys in Vegas, the folks that build the big buildings in the desert, get things right more often than not. But that one's so far off base. All right, that was my.
That is what we talked about for 20 minutes. It was a little more X-rated when we had the cameras off, as it tends to be for this Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Lav. We're powering down at the moment, packing our bags and heading to Valhalla early Monday morning. Rex and I will be both on site on Monday, following live reports. Immediately, you can catch Rex on live for the PGA Championship. I will be, apparently they're out of people with a pulse to be on the desk, Rex. I will be spending my 4 hours on the desk alongside Paige McKenzie and Aaron Oberholzer and George Severikis on Tuesday and Wednesday. Hope you guys enjoy that. That should be a lot of fun, talking shop with the guys. And then Rex and I will be doing our thing each and every day at Valhalla during tournament rounds, 15 to 20 minute recap podcast. Always love bringing that to you guys. That will do it for this edition of the Golf Channel podcast with Rex and Lab. In the meantime, NBCSports.com/golf for all the latest news, notes, and updates. I have a big Eric Van Rooyen feature dropping on the website on Monday morning. Strongly encourage you guys to check that one out. We'll pass along a social link as well, and that will be premiering Wednesday night on live from the PGA Championship. You do not want to miss it. Absolutely bawled my eyes out while doing the first watch.
You cry every time.
I do, even during the interview. That's going to do it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for the support. We'll talk to you guys on Wednesday.